Day 2 of Module 2, which is all about data and statistics. Today we're going to look at univariate data stats. Univariate is just a fancy word for one variable. And we're also going to be looking at box and whisker plots. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how to summarize data. So if I give you a list of data like this, how do you summarize it? And there's a couple of different ways we can summarize data. You could find the mean, the standard deviation, the minimum, the quartiles, the medians, the range, the interquartile, etc. These are all of the different ways we could potentially summarize the data. The mean is just a fancy word for the average. And the average gives you sort of an idea of where the middle is, the center. The standard deviation is maybe something new to you guys, and that's the average distance from the mean. And this gives you an idea of how spread out the data is. We're going to talk more about standard deviation later in the packet. Then we have something called the 5-number summary. And the 5-number summary is made up of the minimum, which is the smallest value, quartile 1, which is the value that cuts off the first quarter of the data, meaning 25% of the data is lower than this value. Obviously, the minimum, 0% is below it because it's the smallest number. The median, which is quite literally the number in the middle. The median cuts the data into 50 and 50 halves, so 50% below, 50% above. Quarter 2, or quartile 2 rather, this is the value that cuts off the third quarter. The third quarter, if you have 3 quarters, that's 75 cents, right? What that means is there's 75% of the data is below that number. And then the maximum, which is the highest value. And the highest value, obviously, all the rest of the numbers are below it. So 100% is below it. So these 5 things are called the 5-number summary. So if you ever hear me say, what's the 5-number summary, this is what I'm looking for. Range is the highest value minus the smallest. In other words, it's max minus min. Most of you already knew that. Interquartile range might be new for some of you. We use IQR as a shortcut. And it is just the range between the quartiles is all that means. So it's Q3 minus Q2. So it's similar to the range. This is instead of the smallest and the largest, it's the inner quartiles. So it's going to be a shorter distance. So all of these things can be found using your calculator, which is what makes this actually kind of easy. If we were doing all this by hand, it'd be a little bit more difficult. So if you don't have your calculator out, go ahead and pause the video and get your calculator out. So for this example, we're going to use this simple made-up data set. We're going to find all of this stuff for these numbers, the mean, the standard deviation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the step 1, the very first thing that you need to do is enter your data into your calculator. Wherever you want to type data in your calculator, you need to go to this stat button. So if everybody would get their calculator out, the stat button is right here. And this is where you go when you are dealing with data. And then select number 1, edit. So while I'm on that stat button, I'm on edit at the top and edit number 1. I'm going to go ahead and press that. Now, I already have some numbers in my first list, but I need to do a little bit of troubleshooting here for a minute. Some of you might be missing L1. It's not there, okay? Let me show you what that would look like. There, see how I have no L1? That's because I pressed the delete button and it went away. So in that case, you need to get your L1 back. So the way you get L1 back is by pressing second delete, which is really pressing the INS button. And the INS button stands for insert. So I want to insert a list. But before you do that, your cursor has to be all the way up here on the very tippy top. So not here, up on the tippy top. And it doesn't matter if this is L2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. Just get your cursor way on the tippy top and press second insert. Now, if you already had L1, you don't need to do this. But once you do that, you'll notice it bumped over. So you bump that list over and you get this empty spot and you press second 1, which is, if you look, the L1 button. Enter, and now you've got L1 back. Notice the numbers came back with it too. I didn't lose my numbers. So whatever you do, don't ever put your cursor on the tippy top and press delete. You can put your cursor on the tippy top and press clear, right here, clear, and then enter, and it'll clear the numbers out if you have numbers there, but don't press delete. All right, now you need to, after getting on this screen, we can turn our page, and it says now we can type each number into L1. After each number, hit enter to go to the next line. So you need to get your numbers, and you need to type them in. So it was 5, 1, 6, 8, 5, 1, 2. And the numbers were on the previous page. 5, 1, 6, 8, 5, 1, 2. So now all the numbers are there. You can scroll up. If you can't see them all, you can scroll down if you're missing any at the bottom. All right, so the next thing that you do, step 2, is calculate one variable statistic. So once your data is entered, go back to the Stat button, and this time arrow over to the Calc menu. So Stat, arrow right, Calc. At the top of the screen, finally select one variable, stats, enter. So you see my screen looks like this picture here. I'm going to press number 1. Now my screen looks like this image here, and I'm just going to press enter. And then I got a bunch of stuff on my screen that looks like Greek, and that's because it actually is Greek. That sigma button, that sigma symbol is Greek. Turn our page. All right, so you need to just learn what some of these symbols mean. X bar, that first symbol at the very top, is the mean or the average. S of X is the standard deviation. N is the number of numbers. You can skip over all that other stuff. It doesn't mean anything to us. So 4 is the mean, 2.7 is the standard deviation, and 7 is how many numbers we typed in. Now, press the down arrow button all the way down, and now you've got the 5-number summary on your screen. These are pretty obvious what they are. They don't use funky symbols. You have the minimum, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and the maximum. So now I'm just going to fill in these values here. You can scroll back up, and I see that the mean is 4. The standard deviation is S.27. The minimum, scroll down, is 1. The first quartile is also 1. That happens sometimes. Looks like I forgot to ask for the median. Let's add that in. The median is 5. The third quartile is 6. The maximum is 8. The range is the distance from the largest number to the smallest, so it's 8 minus 1, or 7. And the interquartile range, or IQR, is from third quartile to first quartile, 6 minus 1, 5. And I forgot to put a box for the median, so make sure you add that in. Every time I ask you to fill this in, make sure you add a box in for the median. And that's how you find all of your summary statistics. So I want you to do this problem on your own, okay? Let me just remind you, Stat Edit is where you go to put data in. You can either just start typing over these numbers with your next set, or you can put your cursor on the tippy top and press clear, enter. Don't press delete. If you press delete, which is this button here, notice L1 goes away completely, and then you're going to have to put it back again. I suggest you just press clear and don't worry about that. So everybody right now, you need to do this next practice problem here. And when you are done with that, come back for your next video.